I'm here to review The Walking Dead episode 8 titled Coda. The title Coda means how Beth made her last performance in the Walking Dead TV series. But the literature meaning for Coda also means something that ends, but in exchange for something that ends, it completes something else. So, Beth gave her life up for Noah, but for exchange of her giving her life up, it completed Noah's life, therefore giving him life. And he's now free because of Beth, because she gave her life up for Noah. I really love the acting in this episode from Emily Kinney, who portrays Beth, because when you look at Beth, you see a innocent 16-year-old child who has a heart made out of gold, who will do anything for you, who will do anything to help you. And I hate how her life comes to an end. And when I look at Beth, I see a reincarnation of Herschel, that kind-hearted Herschel. And I see how his legacy lived on through Beth. And she has that same heart, kind heart as Herschel had. Because I remember in The Walking Dead season 3, when Rick was talking about giving Michonne to the governor in order to keep everybody alive, or trade her to the governor. Rick goes out on the catwalk, he talks to Herschel, he tells Herschel, are you really, he says, are you willing to sacrifice your daughter's lives for her? And then Herschel didn't say nothing on the catwalk because he didn't want to give an answer. But later on in that season, when he was talking to Maggie and Beth, and he was praying to them when he was reading the Bible, he looks at them and he says, what I wouldn't do to keep you two safe. And then when Rick comes into the prison, I love how Herschel is so kind-hearted, how his heart is made out of gold, because now he decides, yes, I'm willing to put my daughter's lives in danger in order to keep this woman alive, to keep this woman safe. And he tells Rick, he says, Rick, what you about to do? And then Rick replies, I know, I can't. And he was saying, I can't give Michonne to the governor. And he says, I won't. I like the writing for the scene that Beth and Dunn was in when they was in that hospital room with Carol. And I like how Dunn started to open up to Beth, and she also give Beth tried to give Beth some of her personal alcohol. She tells Beth that you don't have to do anything for this. This is part of my personal stash that I had hid. And I like when she's talking to Beth and she tells Beth, sometimes I cry. Therefore, it's showing you that Dunn isn't a bad person, but she chooses to put her authority over everything. Her authority outweighs her good side, and that's bad, and that's what caused her downfall. And you can see what she's talking to Beth, and I love how Beth replies to her, because Beth said the same exact thing in The Walking Dead season 4 when Daryl came and asked her about how she felt about the death of her boyfriend Zach. When Dunn says, I cry sometimes, Beth replies back to her, I don't cry anymore. Beth said that in season 4 of The Walking Dead. And I love how Beth's character is, how her character becomes strong throughout season 5, but except she don't have any of her group members to encourage her to become strong. She don't become strong because of them. She becomes strong on her own. Just from her being locked up in that hospital. And I love the writing for Beth in this season. Now, it's something else I want to talk about. When Dawn was talking to Beth, she says that everybody who leaves always ends up coming back. Now, a lot of people didn't get the symbolic meaning from that scene when she was talking. She was pretty much implying that I control everyone. That's what she was saying in that scene. And if you didn't catch it, I mean, it was obvious. That's what she was telling Beth. I control everyone. Eventually, the people who leave, they will come back. And also, she was implying that the people who think they strong, and once they leave, they end up being weak. And they end up coming back to the hospital seeking our help. And the symbolism behind the scene of when Beth walks up to Dunn and stab her with the scissors. It was so amazing, and I love the characters reaction to how everything went down. I love to see how Rick had tears coming from his eyes. And I love to see how sad Dara was. I love to see Tyrese, Sasha, how everybody got emotional. The scene was so real to me. And I love how Dara was the one to step up and shoot Dunn in the head and put her down. But back to the scene when Beth walks up to Dunn and stab her with the scissors. A lot of people didn't catch this, but I saw it. Now remember earlier when Rick had caught all the police officers, and after he ends up killing Bob, he ends up going back to the warehouse. Remember, Officer Shumpert, the female, tells Rick, of course, you can still make the exchange. Just tell her that Bob had got eaten by zombies. And Rick agrees to it. But Shumpert also tells him, and this was some foreshadowing, and I love how this was displayed in that scene when Beth was facing Dunn. She tells her, Dunn will try to kind of prove a point because she feel like she feel like you're going to push her into a corner and she's going to be weak. So she's going to try to prove herself in front of us and show us that she's not weak. She didn't say it in those exact words, but that's how she pretty much said it, that Dunn will try to prove herself and prove that she's not weak. And her pride will play a major part in it, in her alter ego. And I remember when Beth stepped up to her, or before Beth did, when Rick was walking off with everybody after they made the exchange, you can see how Dunn, look at Dunn's eyes. She looks back at the police officers in the back of her when Rick is walking out. And the look that she gives them is like, I just made this exchange. Do they think I'm weak for what I did now? And this is where her alter ego and her pride plays her downfall. Because she sees them looking at her and she looks back at them in a frightening way, as I just stated. Wow, okay, as I stated. They're going to, are they going to question my leadership now because of what I just did? And you can see how Dunn looks back at Rick. Like I say, her pride comes in and she tells Rick, you can leave, but give me Noah. And you can see how Officer Shumpert says no. And then Dunn tells her, be quiet or shut up. Now, that shows you that the other police officers are good. The other three that got killed was bad. So the rest of the police officers are good. And they don't have a major pride and an alter ego problem like Dunn did. And like the police officer told her before, you're starting to crack like Officer Hanson did. And we all see it. And Dunn knew this, but she was hiding the truth within her. She didn't want to experience it herself. She knew what was going on with her. And like I said, that pride thing that played that part. And she tells Rick, come back, I want Noah. And I love when Beth steps up to her and Beth hugs Noah. Because Dunn knew she was wrong. She knew the relationship that Beth and Noah has. And she knew by doing that, she was going to hurt Beth. Or try to hurt Beth emotionally. Or mentally. And you can see how Beth hugs them and she tells Dunn, I knew it. Now, a lot of people didn't catch on to what she said when she told Dunn, I knew it, before she stepped to Dunn. She was telling Dunn, I knew it. I knew it was all about your authority. It was all about your alter ego. It is all about your pride. She didn't say it in those words, but that's how she meant it. And you see how she stepped to Dunn and she stabs Dunn in the side of her chest. Or stab her with the scissors. Now, I wanted her to stab Dunn in the neck to kind of make the kill even. But she didn't do that. And you can see once she stabs her, the symbolic meaning behind that stab was to show Dunn that, Dunn, you claim you can't control everyone. But when Beth steps to her, Beth was letting her know, you can't control everyone. You can't control me, and you can't control what I'm about to do to you. That was to show Dunn that she can't control everyone. And also, part two, she was letting Dunn know, I'm strong. Because you said everybody that leaves and come back, everybody that leaves, they come back. But Beth shows her that you can't control everyone. And she also shows her that I have nothing to live for. So for that, I'm going to exchange my life and give my life up to give Noah a life. And that what Beth shows us. She stabs her with the scissors, and it was just letting her know that, hey, I'm stronger than what you think. And I love what the writers did with that scene, because I remember when Beth was talking to Daryl in The Walking Dead season 4, and she was telling Daryl in the empty house that was standing that night. She tells Daryl, she says, when everything ends, I promise you, you're going to be the last person standing because you're strong. She says, I'm going to be dead because I'm weak. And then she tells Daryl, she says, Daryl Dixon, you will be the last person standing. And I love how the writers impacted that, or took that scene and applied those emotions to Beth in that scene. Because now, when Beth dies, she doesn't die being weak as she thought she was gonna die being weak. She died being strong. She died being fearless. And that scene right there was so symbolic. And I love Emily Kinney's performance in that episode. And you also see her last performance from Beth being a singer herself, because she likes to sing and she likes to perform in front of, she used to like to perform in front of her Herschel father, in front of her father Herschel, used to sing in front of him and stuff. This was her last performance in that scene. And you can see once she stabbed Dunn with them scissors, Dunn shot her by accident. But it's the way she pulled out the gun. Viewers think like, viewers thought that she did it on purpose, because she had to pull a gun out first to shoot Beth through her head. That wasn't the case. It's what you call instincts. It's what Dunn was around the past couple of years. Instincts. Her instincts kicked in. Those police instincts kicked in, and when she got stabbed, she pulled a gun out and she shot Beth by accident. And you can see how Dunn isn't a bad person, because you can see she shows remorse for what she did. She even started crying, and she was telling them like, I'm sorry. But Daryl ends up shooting her in the head, and I think that was justified. I think it was phenomenal to have Daryl finish her off, because Beth and Daryl was close. And I love that final scene when Rick is crying in the hospital after Beth's death. And he tells everybody that's in the back of the police officers, he even tells them, if y'all want to come with us. And I don't like the fact how people don't mention the impact that Andrea made on The Walking Dead, because it's because of Andrea Rick is the man that he is now when it comes to allowing people to come around him, to be around him, to trust, for him to trust in them. Andrea was that person who showed Rick before she died that it's okay to allow people to come around you. It's okay to open up to other people. You don't have to be caged, keep yourself caged in like that mentally. And you see when Beth dies, you get that same sort of reaction that comes from Andrea's death. Because you remember, before Andrea died, or after she died, Rick opens up again. He takes all the Woodbury citizens and bring them back to the prison. And that's something he wouldn't do before. But Andrea's death, the impact of her death, allowed Rick to be an open man again. And you can see how Beth's death reminds him of that. And now he's open and he's willing to take these people in, regardless of the states that the problems that they in, even if they don't have food. He's still willing to let them in. And I love how Officer Shumpert, she steps up and she tells them that, hey, she tells them that they can, even allow them to come with him if they wanted to. And I'm going to love Officer Shumpert being the new authority, the new power, because she's not power hungry. She's not dealing with an alter ego or a pride problem at all. And you can see how she was the one who stepped up to the plate, and she stopped the bloodbath in that hallway, because a bloodbath could have easily happened in that hallway. And I kind of wish that Beth would have thought about that before she went up and stabbed them with those scissors, because that could have caused a bloodbath in the hallway. But it didn't, because Officer Shumpert stepped in. And she also tells Rick after Officer Dunn death that she had a pride problem, and she's gone now. Next, the scene with Father Gabriel going to the church to get evidence of Garrett and his people being bad people. He found Bob's leg with maggots on it. And you can see how the zombies are now starting to get really aggressive. Now, if you remember from the information of The Walking Dead, you will remember that zombies do indeed get very angry when they haven't eaten in a long time. So therefore, it allows them to push their body past their limits, because you can see how these zombies are not walking fast. If you remember, zombies can't run because why zombies can't run? Because they have weak ankles. They have weak ankles, and it also causes the weak ankles to happen from their decaying bodies, and their bones are not able to be stabilized. So it causes zombies to kind of walk slow and kind of walk with limps and stuff because they have weak ankles. And you can see how these zombies are very hungry, very aggressive. Because you remember The Walking Dead season 2 when that zombie was stuck in the mud, he got so angry to the point where he was able to push past his own limits, and he was able to get out the mud. And later on in season 2, it's the same zombie that ended up killing Dale. And that zombie had weak ankles. You can see how these zombies are very angry, and now they're able to bust the glass that's at the school. And all the zombies from the school come from out the school, and they follow Father Gabriel to the church. And I love the meaning in the payback kind of scene that Father Gabriel was going through, because we see him beating on the church. Now that had a symbolic meaning to it, and it was showing you that now he's in the same predicament that the other people was in, that he had locked outside of the church. Now he's in the same predicament that they are in. Now he's beating on the door outside of his own church, trying to get in, just like he had the people doing when they were trying to get into the church when he was in it, and he wouldn't let them in. And I love that symbolic meaning of that scene when they showed that. And I love once the zombies get into the church, it has writing on the wall. I can't remember exactly how it was written or what it said, but it says something similar to these lines: "The ones who eat my flesh and drink my blood will have eternal life." Now, I could quoted that miscorrectly, but that pays homage, but it also has symbolism to the zombies that has gotten into his church. Because remember, it says the ones who eat my flesh and drink my blood will have eternal life. Zombies pretty much have eternal lives at this point, and they do eat flesh, and they drink, blood comes with flesh, and it helps them live longer. So it pays homage to the zombies once the zombies gets into the church. And I love when Father Gabriel got into the room, and he tells Michonne to go, and he tells Carl to get the infant and y'all get out of here. I love that scene with Father Gabriel, because it's like that. I felt like he was paying his respects some type of way, but also at the same time of him doing that, he was trying to redeem himself for all the bad sins that he did, including leaving those people out the church. So I think he was trying to redeem himself, or at least I think that's what the writers were trying to do with his character, have Gabriel redeem himself in that scene, even if it means sacrificing his own life. Because I remember when Michonne was about to climb at the bottom, was about to go under the church, and he tells Michonne, "Go. It's worth it," meaning that me sacrificing my life for y'all is worth it. Remember when Michonne was talking to Father Gabriel in the early episodes of season 5, she goes up to the room and she tells Gabriel, she says that everything that we do is worth it. And Gabriel closes the door, and he never understands that, but now you see he understands what Michonne mean, and he tells her the exact same thing that she told him. It's worth me sacrificing my life for y'all. And he tells her to go. And he says, "I'm not getting out this door until all of y'all are out of here." And he does that, and he still ends up living. So I respect Father Gabriel for that, and I also respect Beth. You can say whatever you want to say about Beth, but you got to respect the fact that she stepped up and she exchanged her life to give somebody else a life, which is Noah. So I respect her for that. And I love the symbolism behind the Rick and Bob scene. And a lot of people say Rick was wrong, but they also forgot to mention that if Bob would have made it to the hospital, he would have put Rick's whole plan in jeopardy, because I'm pretty sure he would have told Dunn about it. But also at the same time, you forgot to mention that Rick warned this guy on multiple occasions to stop running and stay where you're at. What Bob did, he kept running. Now, I'm pretty sure Bob was a nice guy. But when Rick ends up hitting Bob with the car and he breaks Bob's back, therefore Bob is now dead, waiting, Bob can't do anything. Rick is just sitting there and he realizes that I can either have these zombies attack this guy or I can do him a favor and shoot him in the head and end his misery. Instead of having him going through misery with these zombies eating him, you can see how Rick looks back at the zombies. And he's just making up a choice, and he chooses to put Bob out of his misery. And I love before he kills Bob, and Bob is talking to him. He tells Bob, "You can't go back, Bob." Just like the black Bob, just like Garrett had told a black Bob at tournaments when Bob was trying to talk him out of from killing them, Garrett from killing them. Garrett tells him, "You can't go back, Bob." Look at this guy's name. His name is Bob. Rick tells him, "You can't go back, Bob." And after he shoots Bob in the head, I love how he tells Bob to shut up. Again, with that scene, Rick made a decision. I can leave him here for the biters, or I can be the good guy and put him out of his misery because he can't do anything. His back is broke. He can't even walk anymore. But at the same time, you got to remember, Rick felt like he had some type of trust with this guy because he felt like this guy was relatable to him, being a police officer. And he felt like he kind of got betrayed a little bit because he felt like, okay, now I have mixed emotions. He could be good, but look what he just did to one of my group members. He could have killed her at the same time. So now Rick, like I said, he has mixed emotions now. So now he chooses to be Rick. And I remember a quote from Andrew Lincoln from the Walking Dead magazine issue 10. Andrew Lincoln says, "If you stand beside Rick, you are his family. If you stand in front of him, you're a problem." Now, long as he was standing beside Rick, Rick considered him, you know what, we good, we family, but I'm still going to keep you tied up because I don't completely trust you, but I see you're a good man. But Bob decides to stand in front of Rick. Now Bob becomes a problem to Rick. The next scene I really love, this the final scene, is when Daryl and everybody come out the hospital and he holding Beth. And you can see how Maggie starts to break down and cry because now, instead of her thinking her sister was dead, she actually sees her sister's dead body in her hand, in Daryl's hand. And now it hits her. And now it's more emotional now because it's different now. It's different from thinking somebody is dead and coping with it, but actually seeing a dead body in a hand, you really get to see how Maggie displays a real, true emotional role right there. She started crying. It was amazing. I love Lauren for acting that role out so good. And I love the symbolic meaning behind the scene because you see how the camera zoom out from the characters, and it zooms out and it shows the whole city of Atlanta. You even see the clouds in the air. The symbolic meaning of that scene, it stands for what's next for the Walking Dead crew, or where is the Walking Dead crew heading to next. That's what that scene means. It's like to be continued type of way, or what's next out there. That's what that scene stood for. And then we see Morgan comes in. I told y'all Rick will always leave breadcrumbs behind so Morgan can follow those breadcrumbs. And eventually Morgan will end up following Rick to Washington, D.C. and finding him. But he did find a map that Rick had left behind at Gabriel's church. So Morgan is on his way to Washington, D.C. now because on the map it says Rick come to Washington, D.C. Abraham had put it on there. So I love this episode, but at the same time I felt like they could have did Beth a little bit better. I feel like it was rushed and I didn't too much like it, but hey, I'm not the writer of the show and it's just me. So remember to give me a thumbs up on the video, please share the video, and have a blessed day. Love you all. Peace.